Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. Support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys. Head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Yeah, we should do an acapella group.
you and I starting a choir. My God, yeah. Can you imagine? It's you, me, and who else is in this choir? Like Hannah, obviously.
Just me. Just you and me.
Singing what? Carols? Are we caroling?
Yeah. Yeah, we're caroling.
I like the idea of us caroling.
God, the cops would be called on us so fast.
Oh my God, can you imagine us standing outside in our shoddy clothes?
Yeah. We wouldn't even open our mouths.
They'd be like, get them in jail. Just put them in jail. They're begging for it.
We'll figure out what the crime is later.
They did something. Look at them.
Yeah.
They did something. They wouldn't be wrong. We did do something.
No, they wouldn't. Yeah. We'd be,
We deserve it.
We were going to rob them. Absolutely.
We were at least going to rob their time. Hey, everyone.
Yeah.
Speaking of doing that. That's
my name is David Bell.
My name's Adam Ganser.
And we just watched Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Forever.
I agree. Maybe we should just cut to clips of that movie. A Christmas Story for a good 10 minutes.
I haven't not done that before.
Yeah, that's in the spirit.
You said A Christmas Story?
Yeah.
My friend. That is The Sandlot.
Oh, fuck!
We know what you whisper. They have lost their protector. Now is our time to strike.
Yeah. It's all right.
I deserve to be cast into the sea and discover a civilization. That's what I deserve.
I understand. No, yeah. I do understand the confusion. Yeah, okay.
My apologies.
So, Adam, first of all, thank you for being the guest host here.
Thank you. Yeah. I love it.
Of course.
Love being here.
At the top of this, do you want to just plug anything? You want to tell people who you are, where people can find you?
Well, thank you. I am Adam Ganser. You might have heard my podcasts on a Patreon network called patreon.com/smallbeans, where I do several podcasts with Abraham Epperson and Michael Swaim. Or you might know me from my slightly more popular venture on iHeart called One-Upsmanship, a podcast about video games. Dave and I have spent no less than 40 minutes talking about God of War Ragnarok so far off mic.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing we're going to spend about an hour more when you finally get into that game.
Yeah, I'm going to start it today.
Yeah, I'm going to finish it today, I think.
Nice.
I think.
Full circle, man.
It's it's like fate, or is it a thing we chose?
It's the Ouroboros or whatever. Listen, this isn't about God of War. This is about the new Black Panther.
Yeah.
Which everybody's seeing, one assumes.
Should.
This, of course, has a very interesting story behind it, which is the death of Chadwick Boseman.
Right.
Who they wrote an entire script for the sequel, and then he died from colon cancer. It was extremely sad.
Yeah.
And so they rewrote this movie to kind of reflect that. Spoilers, obviously.
We're gonna spoil the movie. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so this is about the death of that character, or at least it begins with. How did you like this movie, Adam?
Okay. I liked lots of it, and I can't say I didn't have fun. I did have fun. I have mixed feelings that I suspect are more about Marvel than this movie. Like I think that it did get marveled in ways that I think are not good. I don't have a lot of critiques that are like, oh, this movie was flawed in X, Y, and Z way that are specific to this story so much as, like, again, the Marvel stuff. There are a few things about it that are, I think, really, really good. I actually think the memorial stuff, I mean, I don't want to get into all of it, but the memorial stuff for Chadwick Boseman was really, really good. And it reminded me of some of the stuff that Coog does so well. Like, Coog is so good at that stuff.
Yeah, I thought they were going to lean into it even more, and I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah.
Because I think it was just the right amount.
People are kind of saying that it's the story of not having a Black Panther. Like it's this aching heart of this country that can't replace a Black Panther. Like that's ultimately what the story is about. And I would say it's not focused enough for that to be my takeaway from it.
It's tough because wasn't the first Black Panther about who's going to be Black Panther?
I think they're always going to be that, aren't they?
I don't think they wanted it to be that.
Okay.
And
yeah.
this one, I think this one had to be that because for obvious reasons. Spoilers, it's Shuri, which was unusual
It had
because
to be her,
she's
I think.
Yeah, but I didn't take her for someone who would want to inject herself with stuff or wear a mask.
I agree. They had to do some facelifting on the character a little bit. And I don't know that it was always successful. I think that the character of Shuri, and also I like the actress, the way she's performing it. That's
for the record, that was a hit against the actress.
No, not
came out.
No,
against vaccines.
Right.
they had to work around that too. I think Marvel just jumped on that. They were like, "Listen."
Like that's what's happening.
Just went off social media after that, and like I don't know, she's like 20 something. It's like it's fine. Man.
She might just be a knucklehead.
I mean, everybody's a knucklehead at that age, you know. So it's like I'm not saying it's good, but she's 29, so she's not. She's exactly
29. That's too old. You know what, man? I don't know. I'm of the opinion like I don't think that's good, and I definitely think it harming the production is very bad.
Yeah, I also she didn't do a full on like Gina Carano. Like she didn't compare it to the Nazis or anything. She did a more light version from what I remember, but it's still not great. But
she also got injured in this production, I believe. I think there was also an injury that like just delayed production. Like this production had a lot of problems. I mean, the first one being the entire movie had to be scrapped months before production when Chadwick Boseman died.
What a fucking thing to happen.
And they were surprised. You know what I mean? Like that's how close
he didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Nor did he have to. He's not required to. And it's like,
of course.
Honestly, if I had cancer and I was like under the Marvel machine, I wouldn't want to tell them either because I'd feel like scared of Marvel. It's like, what are you gonna do? They're like, okay, we're gonna digitally scan your entire body. We got to scan you right now. You know, like, but they got ahead of that too. They were like, we're not gonna have a digital double. We're not gonna try to recast him. We're gonna face this head on. And honestly, that was the best decision. It really feels like Coogler is like. He's really good at steering this ship, despite the ship having this big fucking Marvel-sized like anchor on it. You know what I mean? Because I agree with you about this movie, which is this movie's good, but it has a lot of Marvel to deal with.
Yeah, and it bogs it down. Like I think there was a great movie here that got marveled, so that it's merely a good, sometimes not so good movie.
Yeah. It's not. I wouldn't say it's all like the standalone stuff is perfect. I felt like there was a little bit of, again, this might be the Marvel of it all, but it's like for being almost 3 hours long, it felt like some stuff was rushed. They had to sort of like they at one point they have to have someone go down into an underwater city and then get rescued,
and that
it's
takes
like that is
5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's such a logistically impossible thing,
right?
And they just got to be like, okay, she's out. They stuff like that.
Well, so okay, I want to trace back to like a couple quick little points because I think we should spend some time on the Marvel issues. I really do.
Yeah.
Just some quick points. I do think that if you're going to pick anybody in this story to be Black Panther, it has to be Shuri, right? Like that's not a mistake.
So this is like not a logical thing. But what's her name? Okoye?
Yes, Okoye.
I wanted it to be her more than anything.
I like that character a lot, and she is a good warrior. It makes sense.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like if I were the queen of Wakanda, which I'm not, she would be the obvious choice because it's like, well, you already know how to kick ass. And I felt like Okoye was put on the back burner in this way more than she. Like, that's my big. And it's not a narrative issue. It's a fan issue. I am a fan of that character. I love her.
See,
I want more of her. And she felt like she was shelved for this movie.
Well,
and because they start her with an arc, which is like, you failed the queen.
They shouldn't have her have an arc. I love her. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But like, look. If we're gonna accept the Marvel idea, which is that we're gonna have movies about everybody, you know what I mean? Like, everybody's getting a movie,
right?
Then like, we don't need everyone to have an arc in the prime movie here. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't need an arc. I would say, like, I think 3 characters here needed an arc, maybe 4. Like, I think Shuri needed an arc. I think Ramonda, Angela Bassett's character, needed an arc.
Oh yeah.
I think Lupita. Who plays Nakia? Is that right? Nakia?
I forgot about her character.
She needed an arc, and she didn't quite have one, but she needed one.
No, she's kind of on this. She's shelved as well.
And Namor,
Namor,
the
obviously,
villain.
yeah.
The rest of the people don't need arcs.
Yes, again, logically speaking, Shuri needs to be Black Panther. It makes
right.
It makes
just
all
no other
the
way.
Sense.
Yeah, there's just no other way.
But my heart really didn't. My heart really wanted Okoye.
I could have lived with Nakia, played by Lupita, or Okoye. I could have lived with either of them being Black Panther and been like, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought Lupita, but she's too expensive, I feel like.
For Black Panther?
Well, actually, you're right, is that half the time it's just a CGI stuntman. Anyway, but Lupita, I felt like she would be like, I mean, I guess she's not too expensive. She just doesn't feel like, she's like, she's one where it's like, I don't think you're going to be in this that much. It's like watching like Natalie Portman in the Thors, where it's like she clearly doesn't want to be there.
Right.
She's like, listen, I like the money, but I'm never gonna be like a big main featured character
because she doesn't fit in the Marvel universe as much as she fits in the Oscar universe.
Exactly.
Right? Isn't that really what it is?
Yeah, Lupita feels the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, Lupita's in serious movies, right?
Yeah, I think Winston Duke is killing it in these. I think he's also kind of like happy to be on the side a little bit.
I'm sure that's true. So, like, this is a tough movie to tackle because it's like, what thread do you pull on first? Like,
right.
I really think there was a good movie here that was just the story of 2 or like maybe 3 women dealing with the loss of a king and a brother and a son.
Yeah.
And sort of coming into their own. I think that was a story that was a good story. And it just got buried under a bunch of other stuff that sort of drowned the emotion of it. You know,
this is it's okay. Yeah, let's talk about the Marvel of it all, because famously, everybody knows the president's aware.
Yeah,
I
got
have
a text
almost,
about it.
Yeah, I almost have the Amber Alert. I almost always have the exact same issue with Marvel films, even the good ones, and this was no different. Which is that this is probably my favorite. Story-wise and emotionally, this is probably the best Marvel film I've seen in a while. Yeah. Like, I liked Raimi's Doctor Strange more, even though that movie's a fucking mess. Because I like his directing.
Well, it's silly. Like, it's not trying to tell a poignant story.
Yeah, I had more fun. But this is obviously the best one in a while. But every single thing, it's the thing that gets in the way is the fact, and this was the same problem with the first Black Panther. The Marvel of it all gets in the way, which is that Coogler specifically creates these situations where he wants nuance, and he wants to tell an emotional story, and then Marvel is like, well, guess what?
We still gotta have laser mermen. We still gotta have that.
To his credit, in this one, spoilers, doesn't end with the good guy defeating the bad guy, which what really bugged me about the first Black Panther, which was like this, like where it was like they presented a villain who had a point, and then they just have to end with a superhero battle. That's what it's the same with. Or WandaVision, where it's like, we're going to explore a woman's grief. And then it's like, are you going to have her fight a fucking witch in the sky at the end?
I mean, ultimately...
And then resurrect the person she was grieving.
Well, that's the problem with superhero movies, is that ultimately they end up sort of dramatizing and externalizing inner conflicts that would be more interesting if they were just inner conflicts.
Exactly.
You know?
Because it's always going to be a superhero movie, so it will always hit a ceiling where it's like, at
where
the end of the
nuance
day,
gets
you need
lost.
them to pew 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 each other.
Well,
and so
that's what's so cool about this, like that I think they managed to sort of carve out 3 distinct spaces where they didn't do that. The first is all the funeral stuff up top for T'Challa. All of it is fucking awesome. It's so good. It's like you just forgot how powerful the fact that this poor actor died is. Like, and it makes you think about, my God, like it makes you think about the movie, but it also makes you think about what the movie meant to all of us as moviegoers, and especially like the black community. Like, they lost Batman. You know what I mean? Like this is one of the most significant superheroes ever, and he died before he even really got started. And it's just awful.
Oh yeah, not just superheroes, but just actors. Like, it's wild.
Yeah.
And of course, he's a person, but like for us, the audience, it's like it's incredible to see something that tragic. And of course, this is bookended by the ending, which is extremely powerful. Kevin Smith was right to cry, folks. He was right to cry. Don't make fun of him. No, where Shuri sits on the beach and then they just cut like
was so
almost
good.
silently.
God.
No music,
was
just
perfect.
these like silent shots of
just-
fucking Chadwick Boseman, and you're just like, fuck, man.
Like Coog is so good at that shit, man.
Yeah.
Like Coog was doing that, and Coog was doing that in film school. Coog is like, anytime that there's just a moment for that kind of like meditation, he's gonna knock that out of the park. He's so good at it, and like both of those moments were so genuine, and they really elevated the whole rest of the film, I thought.
Yeah.
Into like, oh, okay, this is real. This is really, like, we're really doing some storytelling here. And the other moment that I think is related is they had just a Marvel in memoriam section when they did the Marvel comics that was just Chadwick Boseman, which sort of, it was like, it was no longer just about the funeral. It was about how big of a loss this man was to the biggest movie franchise ever.
Yeah, they did they did an extremely good job.
Yeah,
with
it's great,
that entire angle of it.
They did
that the Marvel logo. That was a good idea. They did right by him in terms of honoring him in the movie.
But the point I want to make is it was also good for the movie. Like, I think the movie is better because they did that.
Well, that was so here's this thing that was so. And again, like, I don't think there was ever a question. Like, again, like all the media has said, like, they almost immediately said, we're not replacing him. We're not replacing him.
Right.
And like, can you imagine if they tried to pretend that the character was still alive?
No.
Or
no.
It's just like, no, you kill the character and then you have everybody around him be mourning the character, so we, the audience, can also mourn the actor.
Yeah, you just can't do it.
Yeah. And making it about grief and loss.
It's like,
it's very smart.
It's like, what if you'd recast Neo after the first Matrix?
Right.
That's what we're talking about. It's just like, no, you just can't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it. He's too inextricable from that role.
Yeah.
I agree. They made the only choices they could, and I think they did a great job with that problem, and they made that problem have a sort of narrative complexity that elevated the film, and I thought that was really, truly beautiful, and I loved that.
And again, and this is when I complain about having to do the Marvel of it all.
Yeah.
The obvious answer is like, well, what else are they going to do? Because it is true, is like, they're not going to not do a superhero movie. So it's like, okay, for a superhero movie that has to mourn the loss of its lead actor, this is probably as good as you can get. Right?
Absolutely. Well, and also, I think if they didn't make more movies, that would be undercutting the legacy of this movie. You know what I mean? Like, I think
like,
they
this is
should
one of the
make
times
more
where it's
movies.
like making more movies is a good idea too.
They should and did
keeping and like honoring him. This is again as good as it can be.
Yeah.
It definitely. There's a few things that I think it could do without. But yes, generally speaking, the part handling the loss of Chadwick Boseman, all that they nailed. And Shuri's character, they nailing the anger that she feels and the idea that
can I
let's get
object
into it.
Can I object to this a little bit? So I totally believed her anger. I also, it took me a little while to get a sense of who I think that character is this time around, because she definitely keeps a brave face on, and because she looks like a child. I mean, she looks younger than she is. She looks like she's like 18 or something, right? And so like I didn't get the sense, even though they had that line, that there was all this seething anger in her, because she seemed pretty light and playful for a lot of this movie. And so
that's a good point. That's a good point. She doesn't. It's the Marvel thing where it's like, we're going to joke, and then the next scene we're going to be serious.
That's right.
And it's like,
yes, that's a huge problem, because, again, this is one of the bigger spoilers. So, I don't know, man, if you're going to listen to this podcast, just get ready. So like when she finally recreates the herb that transfers her to the ancestral realm, which is the only way to become Black Panther, she meets Killmonger. Now, obviously the reason she meets Killmonger is because they needed somebody that mattered, and he's the only person left in the franchise.
And again, I can't stress this enough. You could see, even without like digitally doing it, you can see them bringing like a look-alike from Chadwick for like a shot. You know what I mean?
I almost thought they were going to Grand Moff Tarkin it. I really thought that might happen.
And I'm so glad they didn't.
Me too.
I liked the use of Killmonger. I liked that because it was supposed to show darkness.
But I didn't believe what it meant. Like, I didn't believe what it meant. Did you?
I have a proposal. I have a
great.
proposal.
I'm excited.
What if Shuri was the main villain of this one, and it's about her having a change of heart? Like, I think
that's what I hope would
happen.
But see, I thought
she almost goes that way, but they don't do it enough. You're right, they don't do it enough, and like the ending battle really kind of was a whiff for me, because it's her doing a spite, where she's like, we're all going to go out there and trap them on this boat.
Right.
And it's not very visually grand. And it's also
or
like
clear logically, like how would this work?
Right.
Yeah.
And she's having this moment of like, for Wakanda, for the Queen, and everybody's cheering, and I'm like, yeah, but this is a revenge.
Right.
And like, what, you can't make it also a powerful moment. You have to make this a sad
This
moment.
is the Northman. Like, you decided to do the Northman here.
Yeah.
And like I think it would have been a powerful move. I don't know if it's the right move, and I'm sure Marvel would have said no. But for her to like go full vengeance quest and become an evil, like become Killmonger.
Yeah, I don't think she needed to become like what's her name? Wanda. Like, I don't think she had to go that far, but I think she needed to hit the brink.
Oh, right. They just did this trope. That's right. I forgot that.
Right, but I do think there needed to be more darkness there. You're right. Now that you bring it up, like, I think
I was confused. I was confused on the level of like, why is she doing this? Like, and then I was like, okay, so I see what the math was, but I just didn't emotionally connect to it. And then I just don't think this actor brings that kind of fury to it. Like, again, if you'd put Okoye in this position and she was rotting from the inside with rage and vengeance, and then had her do it, I would have bought that. You know,
that's why this felt like a misstep, because so I still believe, like, I still like the idea of Shuri in her the darkness and the need for revenge, but you're right, is that so they never say exactly how he died.
It's an illness, and she could have saved him if he'd been able to drink the ancestral drink again.
Right. So
that was unclear.
Yeah. That was the thing, is her rage isn't quite directed enough. It's like I'm mad at like circumstance. So like they didn't have anything for her to be like really mad at. And then you compare that,
she was helplessly angry. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Why am I
like
here?
That idea of like, I just want to see the world burn. And so what they had to do was kill her mother, so she gets a separate revenge arc. Like, that was what was weird, is like she's a beginning of like, I just want to see the world burn, but she has, it's directionless, and then the bad guy comes, kills her mom, and then she's like, new arc, I want to kill him. And it's like, all right, well,
or reboot of same arc, really. But yeah.
And so when you look at Okoye, where it's like, so what Okoye does, and I thought this was really smart, is so it's still a little weird, but what's her name? Angela Bassett.
Ramonda. Who, by the way, is absolutely transfixing. She's amazing. I love watching her in this role.
Yeah,
I was so bummed that she died. In part because it was sad, but also just because it was like, oh man, she's so good at this role.
She's so good.
I'm gonna miss her so much. Anyway, please continue.
But all right, so you look at like the components of Black Panther, right?
Yeah.
Of the first one is you have the
Right.
Black Panther, you have the Queen,
And
you
the
have
tribes.
like the Gadget, the tribes,
Right.
and so there's all these figureheads,
Right.
And so what happens is, so we haven't really gotten into the plot, but like a bunch of fucking fish people are like, they found vibranium in the ocean. We want to kill the person who invented this detector. I don't know why, because it's like, they'll just make another, but sure,
right,
whatever.
Well, I think the idea was that this is a once in a generation gifted scientist who did it,
Right, but it's like she wrote it down. I imagine how to make this,
Or
but
like
sure.
you're dramatically underestimating how many smart people could do this. It's got to be more than one. Let's
Yeah.
get real. I
whatever.
think
So
you're
they
actually
go to
skipping
MIT.
but you're skipping a step that it matters. So the movie starts off after the funeral stuff, which is again the best part of the movie, with like this UN meeting. And at this
Right.
UN meeting, they're like, Wakanda is not sharing the vibranium resources. And then Angela Bassett plays Ramonda, who shows up there instead of sending a delegate, which is interesting. And she just basically says, like, yeah, we're not gonna because you guys are all corrupt and Wakanda is not. And here's proof. You guys tried to steal our shit and we captured them and brought them here. So fuck you guys, right? So the conflict is that Wakanda has the only source of vibranium, and that's what everybody believes, and Wakanda is unassailable until, nope, there's vibranium under the ocean someplace because somebody found it. Right? That part matters because for some reason America is in this movie, and it's like, they shouldn't be, but that's all I want to say.
They wanted to appeal to American audiences, so they're like, look at this white guy.
Yep. Well, I actually think
we got Bilbo. I mean, he was in the original. He is a character who deserves to be in it.
Yeah, he's fine.
But like the Julia Louis-Dreyfus of it all, it was just like, I don't. Yeah, this all felt unnecessary.
They had an arc. We didn't need that to be there.
Yeah.
Also, I would say, and this is like the most strategic strategic decision that I liked. I think the way they represented Riri, who is the American kid who invented
Ironheart
this device, who then is Ironheart, she was clearly an attempt to get American audiences invested in the story.
Yep, and I would argue
fucking worked. It
really,
yeah, dude. The audience was like connecting, man.
I have a different opinion. I think she could have been completely removed from the film.
I agree, but I'm saying that because you and I were in the theater. Right. And as soon as she basically started getting one-liners, which was pretty quickly, the audience was invested in her.
Yes,
it worked. You know,
here's the purpose of her that's smart is that they needed a fish out of water. They needed someone to go, whoa, look at all this stuff.
Right.
But it's also the marvel of it all, where they're like, we need Ironheart, and so they needed to very quickly introduce this character to the point that it just felt really coincidental, all of it, where she's just so the idea is they're like, you have to go get the inventor of this machine. Again, feels weird.
Inventor of the vibranium discovering Seabot that they found below.
Which for the bad guys, that feels weird, the motivation, where it's like, why would you do that? Like, if America, when we had nukes, you wouldn't go after Oppenheimer. You'd go after America. Like, you'd go after the country that's wielding it, not the fucking inventor, because it doesn't matter anymore.
Well, see, I thought about that. I thought about that in the movie theater. The difference is that, like, if you can't find vibranium, right, which that's the whole setup. If you can't find vibranium, then there is no international incident.
Yeah, but they found it.
Well,
it begins with them finding it.
That's right. So they do know where it is. So they are coming back. You're right. Forgive me. Your point is well taken.
I get what you're saying, and I get what the movie was trying to go for. But to me, that felt like a really sweaty way to get this character in. Because then they go to MIT, and
she's selling test answers.
Yep, and she's just
sure.
a genius Tony Stark, and she's like, oh yeah. They in like a second literally have to have Shuri look up and go, oh shit, you have an Iron Man suit, and she's like, yeah. And then when she goes to Wakanda, they make her like a full-on Gundam.
I hated that.
Yeah,
Like,
it didn't look
just
good. I didn't think it looked good.
I didn't think I hated it because it was like, this is such a distraction from everything else that's happening in this film.
It also,
Like,
again,
what?
the ending fight. So, if you're gonna have an ending fight, a war, first of all, you don't necessarily have to. But if you're gonna, what an awkward situation. It's like a boat that's like doesn't have much space on the top of the boat. So there's nowhere to really go. And then there's this Gundam flying around. And then the villain also flies. So they have to like figure out a way to get Black Panther to fight the flying villain and not the Gundam and not Ironheart. And it was just like it was a lot of really awkward elements, I thought.
It's this, you know what it is, man? It's like watching a 7-year-old that has a bunch of toys that don't match, trying to make a big battle out of those toys.
That was it. And
that's what it is.
That's the stuff where it felt like it was the Marvel of it all, where they're like, we're going to have
the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have Ironheart in this, and it's going to be, it has to be awesome. And it's like, okay, really? Because it doesn't feel like an Ironheart type of story.
Well, see,
and it really didn't.
Well, Marvel has carved out like a couple of playgrounds that make sense for these kind of crossovers, right? Like the Avengers is a place where that's where the 7-year-olds play in the sandbox, right? The problem is that they're doing it on every movie now, where like they all have crossovers, and therefore they have like tones and styles that are in conflict, and they just smash them together at the end. And it's like,
that is really true, is that they used to be like a Thor movie is a Thor movie.
Right.
Will tease other characters, for sure.
They show up, but they don't run the show for 5 minutes, you know?
Look no further than the new Thor Ragnarok. Did you see that?
I did. It was fine.
It was fine. What irritated me was like, listen, either have the Guardians of the Galaxy in this or don't. You advertised it as being like, and here he is with Guardians of the Galaxy. They kept setting it up where he's like, he's going off with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then the movie begins with the Guardians of the Galaxy being like, we're gonna go.
Right.
And
here we are.
Yep. And then when he's faced with like the problem, he doesn't like call them again or anything. He doesn't say, hey, can you help me? Friends. Like they clearly couldn't be in the movie long enough. So it was like, well, just don't have them then.
Like stepping way back, like my fear is that we're actually training people to like, people are no longer getting story training when they watch these movies. You know what I mean? Like people are starting to think of stories as being like tonally kind of who gives a shit. And just like, let's slap this stuff together, and like, as long as there's booms and blow-ups and, if it's R-rated, some nudity, great.
Yeah, it's the lowering of the bar. It's the equivalent
a real bummer.
of... Yeah, it's the Game of Thrones meme where the wings behind her and someone said this shot should be taught in film school, and it's like, that's adorable. Like, this is the first creative shot you have ever seen in your life. It's that, where it's like the moment... Like, I've seen this online and stuff, and like... As people get older, and if someone gets more interested in film, they obviously will mature. But it does feel like the language of film, the bar has been so lowered that when a movie does something remotely competent, people are like, that's amazing. And it's like, no, that's baseline storytelling.
Well, and by contrast, the line for television and for video games that are also entertainment mediums that are aging has gone up for what they expect out of narrative coherence.
It's true.
You know what I mean? So it's not like it's happening to all forms of entertainment. It's just happening in movies, really. Right. And there's been bad stuff forever. I'm not here to say there's bad stuff, but like Marvel dominates movies. Just dominates.
Yeah, and the least they could do is write stories.
Well, the least they could do is like care about their stuff. They don't care. That's what bothers me. Is like for instance, I think these mer people were actually kind of an interesting villain for Wakanda specifically. Not outside of Wakanda, but I thought there was a possibility, because of just stylistically how they work, of there being a really interesting battle between them. And I thought the possibility of Black Panther versus Namor could have been a cool fight. I could have liked it. you know,
Yeah.
and but it just got swallowed because of Ironheart and space battle, like atmosphere battles.
To
and
do a movie about
water
this
bombs
grieving
and-
process,
Yeah.
it needed to be tighter. And like, it's not a movie to introduce like a new superhero. It just isn't.
We don't need it. Take your
yeah.
time, you know.
Yeah, but like going, yeah.
They could have done, guys. So this is the thing, and I'm not in favor of this, but I'm just sort of talking to the reality of it. If they did a movie that said it was called Black Panther Okoye, right, Okoye, and it was just about her, and they introduced Ironheart in that, it was like some buddy spinoff, that would be
would've been
fine. People would be fine with that. You know, like
I want to. So going back to her actually, because this all began with me. I wanted to set up why it felt really weird, because you have Shuri, who's mourning her brother, right? That's how it starts. And
yes.
then we have
and Ramonda mourning. They're both mourning T'Challa, right?
They're both mourning, and then you have, of course, you have Okoye, who's like also mourning and also feels this need to like protect Shuri. And they do this thing where Shuri goes to MIT to find Ironheart, and so what happens is Shuri gets kidnapped. And Okoye comes back, and the queen is like, "How fucking dare you? You
fucked
lay down
up.
your spear.
Yeah.
You're fired."
Right.
And I thought, oh, this is the beginning of her arc, and it never comes back.
Well, she
And-
gets reinstated, but sort of off screen.
like off screen.
Yeah.
And there's this big. She's like crying, and she says, "This is all I have."
It was great.
I want. Yeah, she's killing it, and that's the most powerful scene. And so like obviously Shuri needs an arc too. But then when Angela Bassett died, I thought like, oh, that's great. Okoye never resolved that, and she's gonna have that in her heart, and she's gonna feel like this is all her fault. And meanwhile,
And she
Shuri
becomes
has
Nightwing
to,
for that,
and she becomes
community.
Black Panther. Yeah,
Right.
She
Oh,
becomes
yeah,
the
right.
Black Panther.
Sure. Yeah.
She is. It's a like I thought the next time we'd see her, she'd be getting in the suit. And Shuri has her own arc, which is like she's now rudderless and the queen. And it's like I was saying, the first Black Panther, the queen, was a separate type of character than the Black Panther. And so the fact that she's now queen in Black Panther, I thought like, oh, why can't she just be queen? That still makes her a very prominent character.
and also it's
And she's not a fighter. She's never been a fighter.
correct.
So
That's
it's
a
like,
problem.
Yeah, so it's like, why does she suddenly know how to fucking fight? Like yes, she's superhuman, sure, but it just felt like it really felt like the trajectory was to make Okoye have this like emotional arc where she becomes the Black Panther, and I was so like ready for that.
And
then
I feel the opposite where I'm like, I think that one scene would have been enough. Well, I guess I don't know. I think
But you're right
They
that
halved it.
either they resolve her or they don't
Yeah.
do that at all.
Right, it's one of the
they
two.
they set it up, and then they never give her resolve. Like you said, off screen, she just comes back, and I was just like, oh, really? That's how we're resolving this? Is like she's just, oh yeah, put on this blue suit now, and you're like this, and I was like, oh, I don't give a fuck about this. Like you set up a deep emotional fucking scene with her, and then you never really give her a payoff.
Right, she just sort of comes back in a different suit, and it's like, okay.
Right.
Just really
And when
quickly,
you-
did Marvel movies ever lose money? Do they ever lose money? Do they all
I
make
doubt
money?
it.
Right.
I think they probably all make money.
So that's when I'm like, then there is no reason to do all this arc shit. Like,
Yeah,
you could just make another movie, and
That's
it would make
the thing
money.
about Marvel is that good on them for trying, but like it goes into why these movies often will feel lazy sometimes. It's because they have nothing to lose. Like they have it's I think one of the biggest problems with movies in general, which is like you could make a god awful Godzilla film, and they have several times, and it'll make enough money usually because it's Godzilla. You know what I mean? Where these tentpole,
like
the fact
too
that
big
like
to fail stuff, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and like they have to go so like, or a better example is Star Wars. You can
Right.
make a
Yep.
mess of a trilogy,
And they
it
do.
still makes all the money. Yeah, because the brand is there, and they all the money making is now on that. That like it's so hard to challenge the studio now because of that reason, which is like they're not necessarily trying to make good things because they don't need to.
Well, my point is the studio should, like, the studio is actually incentivized because of that fact to make less bombastic movies that are overbloated, because they can just make another movie that makes money.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Marvel,
so, like, why don't they do that?
The problem with Marvel, and it's been more of a problem, I think, with this new phase, the post-Thanos, is that every film so far has felt like it's just setting up more films.
Right. That's right.
Like, they almost forget about the story they're telling. A prime example of that, I thought, was it was Eternals, where they have Jon Snow in that, and he's just there to set up a future character, but they keep putting him throughout the film, and he doesn't actually matter. And it's like, it's stuff like that. Like Ironheart's an example of that,
Dave,
where it's you're just here to set up a future film.
There is nothing that could have made me watch the Eternals, Dave. Like, there is absolutely nothing that could have.
It's a pretty incredibly bad movie.
Of course it is. Why would I want to watch that? Like, and I like the director a lot, but I know I feel very strongly like, what a shame to use a director with this kind of talent in this space. Yeah. Like, what a waste. You know,
that movie is embarrassing.
Yeah, and to me, it's like, I guess there's a part of me that wants to see Coog, who I love and I think is a great filmmaker and has done great with this franchise, but I want to see him do the stuff that I know he does better than anybody. Like when he gets into the emotional resonance pieces and the grieving pieces and like that stuff, he's so good at. And I thought you could feel it as soon as he started doing it. It was like, yep, this guy is a master of this. And I'm just like, but instead he's got to spend all this time like justifying how Lupita gets down into the center of the ocean without people being seen, and like, and just stuff like that. It's like, this is, nonsense.
I think so. Yeah, it's as I said at the top of this, I think this is as good as a Marvel has been in a while, and it's mainly because all the Marvel bullshit, we're setting up the next film and stuff, was at least minimal enough that this does tell a self-contained story. That's what made, I think, both Black Panther and this the best Marvel films, is because more than any other, they are self-contained. They still obviously have bullshit in them, but not as much as some of the others, where there's some movies out there that feel like all they are is like Age of Ultron. It's just all it is we're introducing characters.
That movie.
These placeholder films. Yeah.
I can tell you, as a person who sort of comes and goes from Marvel, like I'm not invested in their universe, a movie like Age of Ultron is a death rattle for me wanting to see another Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Like I got to get dragged to the theater after I watch that.
Oh, absolutely. But this film, like, there's an identifiable beginning, middle, and end. Yeah, that's a self-contained story.
Sure.
That's like, okay, these new villains, we're learning their world. We have this grieving thing. It really, for me, is the sore thumb that stuck out is Ironheart, which was like, this feels like you're right, is the character was great, but the superhero is like, okay, we don't need this.
But like, I agree with that. But I would also say, this is the reason I keep hammering it: the need to make sure everybody gets some emotional movement for the sake of them being viable characters supporting other stuff, bloats the movie and then robs the movie of its emotional resonance later when they're like, oh, all along Shuri was burning with hate and rage. And it's like, well, she can't be, because she's too busy learning a really cool civilization that she kind of likes.
If they had kept this hyper-focused on Shuri, I would have felt better when she became Black Panther at the end, for sure.
Right. Not even just her. Like, again, it's a story. There were basically 3 women who were trying to make sense of this tragedy. Maybe 4 if you count Okoye. Yeah. And that was the story. And that was the good stuff. We could have had more of it,
Yeah, if they were hyper focused on that.
Right.
It just felt like I don't know.
I also got to say, I would be thrilled to watch a political thriller that is Wakanda dealing with the UN. Like, and I mean, like, we don't get into the violence and the superhero horse shit. Like maybe there's some of it, but like it's just a fucking, like, it's the Cuban Missile Crisis, but instead of like having superheroes fly out there and knock all the nukes out of Cuba or whatever, like it's being done through diplomacy with these interesting characters.
Yeah,
that's a good movie.
So I want to talk about this. Is that this is a big Marvel problem?
Okay, I'm ready.
And this is in the first Black Panther. I've already sort of talked about this, but it's in the first Black Panther. It's in many Captain Americas. It's in this one, which is that the best action in Marvel is the action that actually happens like in the first act,
almost
or second
always.
act.
Right, they're getting you into the scene.
Like car chases that are practical, stunts that are practical. The last action scene is always the absolute worst.
Well, it's
because
orgiastic. It's got to cut between 7 storylines they've created, so you can't really watch any of them. Yeah.
And because they constantly think that in order for it to matter, they have to escalate it. And what escalation means is CGI. It means a big CGI battle where nothing you're seeing is actually real. And that's what it is that like the car chases in the first part, I was like, this is fucking awesome. Keep it going. And that was the same with Black Panther. The car chase, the fights, when you can see their faces, when they're just fighting people. Captain America, it's the same way. When he's on that boat and he's like fucking murdering people. And like, that's all the cool stuff. And then by the end of that movie, they're like, oh, there's fucking giant fucking helipad carriers.
Which doesn't make any sense. So one time when I was in film school, I went to the theater to watch, I believe it was Transformers. It might have been Revenge of the Fallen, or it might have been Dark of the whatever the fuck. Dark of the Moon, that's probably the one. It had like wingsuits and shit, okay? So the wingsuits happened in the third act, and they were soaring between these buildings. I
remember, yeah.
And they were like, there was just gigantic robot shit happening, and I looked at my friend who I'd gone with, and we were excited because it was going to be dumb and fun, and we were bored to tears.
Yep,
bored to tears, and that was the first moment. That was the first moment as a filmmaker that I realized it's never really about the scale. It's not about the scale. It's about tension, and tension. I mean, this is like dumb film school stuff, but I'm going to do it because tension is wanting something to happen and being afraid that it won't. That is tension. And the problem with these orgiastic violent scenes is you don't have enough time to want anything because they're mostly about exposition. They're not actually creating the will they, won't they. They're creating the, oh, this is what the plan is.
They also don't understand tone. A good example is like Mad Max, The Fury Road, where it's like the big ending is a truck crashes. That's it. And it's like, oh, that's amazing. In the moment, it's fucking amazing. Because it is like, Transformers are a great example where it's like, after a certain point, if there's no stakes, it's just noise on the screen.
Well, and
especially when it's CGI. Because I would argue that even if there's like, a good example is early Michael Bay, Bad Boys 2, which is like, okay, this isn't the best plot, but they are literally driving a Humvee through a city or through a shanty town. And it's like, this is at least fun to watch.
Yeah, it's fun.
I might not care about the stakes, but I am entertained.
I'm engaged in the action.
Yeah, if it's a big CGI dildo fighting another, I'm like, it's a computer, man. I'm not impressed.
People spend a lot of time complaining about CGI, and I understand CGI does break reality enough that you don't care. But I really think it's not that it's CGI. It's that the fights are no longer a thing that you are expecting and therefore have a hope for. They are now plot exposition. So like,
you're right.
One of the greatest fights of all time, and it's you're going to be surprised by this. It's in The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. And it's literally just 3 guys. They back against this wall and they all have guns on each other, and you're like, who's going to get shot? And it takes like 2 minutes. It's too long. It takes forever. But all it is eyeballs looking at each other. That's all it is.
Right.
And it fucking works. This
works. Is a more noisy version, but like, for example, Godzilla vs. Kong, which I didn't think was a particularly great movie.
See that movie,
but it ends with just a one-on-one, and it's like pro wrestlers fighting.
That's what you want.
It is right, and it is completely CGI. And that didn't take anything away from it because it knew that it's one-on-one brawl. Doesn't matter if there's CGI or not. It is about, like, I think CGI often creates the problem, but it isn't the problem.
No,
You're
it's
right.
it's what moviegoers think is the problem because they don't know the storytelling mechanics enough. Like, I'm so glad you brought up wrestling. Wrestling at its best is actually the very best at this.
Yeah.
Like, one of the greatest wrestling matches I ever saw was Stone Cold versus The Rock in a WrestleMania called
it's
WrestleMania
historic.
X7.
Historic.
But, like, they had a promo for it, right? And the promo was not about how awesome these dudes are. It was about how much this match means for each of them and beating the other means. Like, it was just selling stakes. And it was selling emotion. Like, not how awesome these guys are. And it fucking works. You know? Like,
for example, for the record, the Godzilla vs. Kong isn't an emotional fight. That's why I think that movie fails. I was just saying visually, you can still have an interesting fight with CGI. But you're right, is that what matters most. Like, if Godzilla had fucked Kong's wife and they were, like, really going, like, it was an emotional battle, I would have enjoyed that more.
It's why Empire Strikes Back is better than Return of the Jedi. Because those are two movies with different philosophies about how to create tension. Empire Strikes Back, it's just Vader versus Skywalker. And, like, that's it. And it's enough, because that's what we've been waiting for.
And I want to bring it back to Wakanda Forever, because I want to talk about the ending in that context.
Great.
Because so what happens is basically Namor kills the Queen. And so, again, it felt like a hat on the hat.
A little after the midpoint. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, it felt like a hat on the hat where Shuri was already, like, had this darkness in her because of her brother, but now she has this new darkness. And it's like, okay, well, that feels like a hat on the hat, but whatever. Okay. So the idea is we start a revenge arc. We start the thing where she's like, I want to kill Namor. And Winston Duke, who's, again, killing it. No notes for Winston Duke.
He's great, yeah.
Basically goes to her and he's like, listen, if you kill him, he's their god. You are going to start a forever war.
Yep.
Like, you need to think about this. Like, so they create this situation, and you see it coming because the part where she goes to Atlantis, let's just call it Atlantis, they show, like, the children there, and they show all the families.
Yeah.
So they're clearly setting up that these are also good people.
Right.
So it's the idea of two leaders going at it at the expense of their people.
Yeah, they're Last of Us. They're Last of Us 2ing it. That's what they're doing. Yeah.
So you know how it's going to end. You know it's going to end with Shuri finding a middle ground with Namor.
If she's going to be a queen, she has to.
Right. But there's this dark ass moment where she basically says, what happens is Namor attacks the city, Wakanda, and kills the queen, and they move everybody out of Wakanda, and they're like, what are we going to do? She becomes Black Panther. And that's when she has the Killmonger scene, and you realize, like, her motivations are darkness.
You
It's
realize
revenge.
that instead of knowing that's where it's going and being afraid for her.
For sure.
That's where you discover it. Continue.
Yeah. But this is the subject of action, I guess, is that...
Yeah.
So the idea is at the end, she's like, we'll set a trap. We're going to go into the ocean. We're going to draw them to us, and we're going to attack. And Winston Duke is like, I don't want to do this. And she's like, you're going to fucking do it. I'm the Black Panther. I order you. So essentially what's happening is she's ordering them all against their will to go fight for her in this vengeance. And then we get to the battle, and it just becomes a Marvel battle. Does that make sense? Where people are like doing one-liners and like, ooh, that's gotta hurt. Ooh, yeah, we're having fun. And they have Okoye like meet her, the guy that she keeps trying to kill, and they have and it's like supposed to be like this victory. But the entire point of the scene is this war is bad. And Marvel is just like, yeah, we're having a great time,
but it'll be
you
fun
can't
first.
do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Like, if you wanted that to actually have an emotional stake, you make it so you stay on Winston Duke, frankly, and on Okoye, and have her like have more of a say, and you show that they're going into a battle. You do the scene where you do the fucking Lord of the Rings scene where he sends his son into battle, right?
Ooh, yeah.
And fucking Pippin sings. You do that.
That's a good scene.
You do this is a tragedy, but instead they wanted to have their Marvel cake and eat it too. So they're like, here's Ironheart. Look, pew pew pew. Like, it was that, and it was like, you literally set this up to be a sad sequence, and then you want to make it fun, and that's the stuff where it's like they'll never be able to make a movie that's truly like award winning or a Resident, like a scene like that, if they can't help themselves and have to be Marvel. Like that was what it came down to. Is some executive was like, yeah, but it'll be fun though, right? And it's like, all right, we'll make it fun. Like that's what it felt like.
It does feel like an executive made these decisions.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope that's true. Actually,
yeah. I've had the same critique of WandaVision. I had it with Werewolf by Night, where it's whenever Marvel goes, this is going to be different and unique, and then they're like, yeah, but this is going to be pew pew pews, and it's like, yeah, of course, and it's always tonally inconsistent with what they have set up.
I think Marvel thinks their fighting is better than it is. I think they could very easily make a movie that doesn't have fighting in it.
Yeah.
I honestly like there's no reason they can't do Hawkeye Mission Impossible, or they can't do fucking like Wakanda Michael Clayton. You know what I mean? They're just not willing to do that shit. And it's like that's
Hawkeye the show.
Yeah.
Did you watch the Hawkeye show?
No, I didn't watch it.
That's a great example because it's like 10 episodes and 9 of them are that. And then the 10th, sure enough, it's pew pew pew.
Right, can't stop
doing it. And it's like, motherfucker,
right.
Like you don't have to pew 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 every fucking time.
Or
Werewolf by Night was like, we're gonna tell a horror story, and then at the end it's, oh, he's a superhero, he's flipping around, killing people in a wonder, and it's like, great. Like it's the same shit every single time, and they gotta get off of it.
Yeah, because it's not, we can't invest in it because it's they don't build up to that stuff. I think the reason that the Infinity War, duology ended up being satisfying is because all the fighting built to one big fight. It's like
right.
the one fantasy you can have that they hadn't delivered, they really delivered there. So it worked.
And look at and look at the Marvel films that often stand out. Like Doctor Strange, it doesn't end with pew pew pew. It ends with I'm going to kill you over and over again until I get tired.
Yeah, that was a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's fun. It's cool when or Guardians of the Galaxy, like that's like the weird dance off stuff where it's like anytime they actually subvert expectations on how it needs to end. Like save the big wars for your Avengers movies,
I mean, I think they could have not done the big battle scene at the end, and they could have done David and Goliath, and it would have been more satisfying.
Yeah, I would have liked a version where they actually say to Shuri like no. Like there's almost like a political upheaval, and she like becomes Black Panther, but it's sad because she's
bad.
just gonna she goes it alone, and has to realize alone like this isn't the answer. Like I like the version where she becomes like she almost becomes a fucking monster, and has to pull back, where she like goes to Atlantis or something, and like returns and starts killing people or something.
Or what if she goes to Atlantis and like literally assassinates Namor and then creates a real problem?
And creates a war, and then the movie ends, and you're like, fuck.
That would have been good. I would have been like, ooh. But also, like, it's easy to, like, I guess, there's a part of me, like, wants to be defensive of the people that I know who worked on this film. But,
well,
like...
All right, for the record, I don't actually think that's the answer, because I think what's more important is that this film be about Chadwick Boseman and grief. And so, like, that's why ultimately the pew 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 part, the superhero part, felt like it was like they were like, "Listen, we have to have this in."
Right.
And so they just did the path of least resistance with that story, so they could focus on what they really wanted to focus on.
But they didn't spend the. I mean, I think that's what. I think that's the part that the filmmakers nailed. And it might be, I mean, maybe that is what they wanted to do. It's hard for me to say what they wanted to do. They probably still wanted to deliver a real action film. I mean, like it is what it is. I feel like we didn't get the fight that we really wanted to see. Like if there was a giant scale battle that we did want to see, this situation wasn't it. Like I think what we wanted is like to see like a on the plains, these two sort of laser spear wielding peoples duking it out, right? Like, isn't that more what you wanted to see with this setup?
They fight like on the beach briefly, and he stabs her through the torso,
and she's fine. That was a what? Yeah,
that to me is a microcosm of everything wrong with Marvel.
Yeah.
He stabs her through the stomach. The audience gasped,
and
it was like,
whoa.
And I thought, and in that moment, I was like, oh, what an interesting idea. She pulls the spear out, never addressed again. And it was like, wait, you can't. That it's the cake and eat it too.
Yep.
You can't stab someone with a spear and make people get concerned and then not address it.
I mean,
that's cheating.
They
You
just
can't
didn't
do
have
that.
the time. They just straight up didn't have the time. There
It's-
was a lot
yeah,
of that.
but it's like killing a character and then just bringing them back the next scene. It's like, ooh, made you feel emotions. And it's like, yeah, but you cheated.
but at
like
the expense of never believing you again.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was like, what was even the point of that? Because that's the point where like she should have just been beating the shit out of him. Like it should have been. It should have been again. Marvel has been. You're right. Like they've been leaning on this a lot because Spider-Man was the same, which is the revenge, almost becoming a monster. That's like their theme now. So I see why they were like trying to avoid it, but then it's like, then don't do it. Like if you're not going to do it correctly, don't do it.
I was going to be very upset if this turned into some like vengeance is the only solution, like for like sort of fourth season of Handmaid's Tale. I was gonna be like, no man, we've had enough of that story. I don't think that's actually good for us to keep hearing that over and over.
Marvel has also had enough of vengeance isn't the answer because
Right.
far. So what did you just point out? WandaVision.
Yeah.
Is that
Right.
Spider-Man is that now. And now this. And every single one, it's the character about to kill the bad guy and then being like, no, like, I'm better than that. Like, Marvel keeps playing the exact same note here. So it's like, yeah, you're right, is like, it would have been fucked up if she just became a villain. Because the idea of exploring the darkness, I think, goes against honoring Chadwick. Like, that ending...
That's true.
Needed to happen.
Yes, it
So Shuri
it would do that.
needed to be good by the end. And that's why I'm thinking, like, why even do that? Like, again, what if Shuri's arc is that the weight of this nation is on her shoulders suddenly? And what if the new Black Panther was Okoye dealing with the guilt and the guilt of letting Shuri down, the guilt of letting the Queen down, like I think that's more compelling for Marvel, who's keeps doing these revenge stories over and over again. I think you could still deal with grief that way. I think you could still have all the things in it.
It's tough
I
because
just think that's a fresher story for Marvel.
it's not that fresh because all you're really doing is like doing a rebooted. I know, doing a rebooted. Hero origin story, because that's what all the hero origin stories are. Like, am I really worthy to be Spider-Man?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's and maybe she deserved that kind of an origin story. I do think they struck in between ideas here, like not quite at the idea. I think the whole taking revenge thing is utterly preposterous. Like, it's just like it's such a just like giving people the feelings that they want that are going to make them sick later.
Yeah,
it's
and
like
again,
junk
the more
food
I think
ideas.
about it, the less it actually works. Just because,
of course,
they start her with the my brother stuff, and then they're like, and also my mom, and now I'm going to do revenge. I don't know. What this also comes down to is that I think I believe this. Superhero films essentially just only have like 5 plots. That's part of the problem,
Of course. Right.
Is like, I'm a super powerful being, and it's like, okay, what do? You either introduce a more powerful being, you introduce a revenge or like a revenge story, or like, I need to save someone I love. But it's always just about the fact that they're super powerful, right?
Well, that's the hook. Is the idea,
or it's about responsibility.
They never explore the mundane aspects of being a superhero, which I continue to think would provide like a generation of movies with life if they would do that. I don't even like want to pitch the ideas that like rattle around my brain when I think of that, because that's
right.
like, you know what, they'll probably fucking do it. I agree. Like, we've just seen it. We've seen it, and we've seen all the meta stuff.
It's been superheroes to me aren't particularly complex concepts.
Not anymore.
I believe that because like, even the meta stuff is now becoming like, yeah. I know they're fascists. Like, I get it. Like that. We did a podcast on martial law, a comic from the 80s.
Yeah.
That's basically just the boys, and it's like, oh yeah, they've been saying this since superhero comics started. Like that. That's the thing. Is like there's nothing new to say about superheroes, and we've hit the part cinematically where all the stuff that was said in comics have been said in movies, and it just feels like it's played out, which is like. All the versions where it's like, what if it's meta and self-aware? What if we explore that they have too much power? What if we talk about them being fascists? What if a superhero like Superman is bad? Like it's all the what ifs we've kind of done, all the ones we're allowed to do. Like I think like even Marvel is like exploring the fascism stuff and like the white supremacy stuff in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like so I just don't know what else to do. It just feels like at this point, it's all rehashes, and the fact that they don't do what we've been talking about, which is like the last frontier is characters, and they don't really do it.
It's also the
like,
first frontier. It's like
yes,
what?
No, sorry, the last frontier of superheroes.
I see.
Is like the last thing you could do in a superhero film is do a movie where the superheroes combating their grief and never fight anybody. But they're not going to do that. You know what I mean? Like that's what we're talking about here, which is like a Wakanda Forever where it's just about grief and about like moving on and like about like the politics of Wakanda. It's like that would interest you and me. I don't think they'd ever do it.
I'll put it to you this way. So I think they would only do it as a prelude to another round of the same thing. I think eventually, if we continue on this on this spectrum that we're on now, without social upheaval or like economic reprisals for the United States, so that we're still making the main entertainment for the globe, I think ultimately they will make superheroes will expand into all genres because they'll realize we can make more money this way,
right.
And then. But because, I think studio executives understand that action movies are always going to be the most profit-generating thing, they will just reboot all this. They'll just do all these movies again.
Yeah, probably. For
of course,
a new
that's exactly
new
what
audience. Yeah.
Iron Man. In 5 years, we'll get Iron Man, and as if we'd never seen Iron Man. I
don't know. Yeah, I think it's going to take a little bit for Marvel. I think what Marvel has up their sleeve is obviously, I think, X-Men and Fantastic Four. That's the next big thing they're going to whip out, and we're going to get that. We're going to get We're going to get 10 more years.
Yeah.
Yep. We're going to get 10 years of Fantastic Four and X-Men.
Well, you vote with your money, friends. I would say don't. Well, okay. If I was going to spend money on any Marvel movie, it would be this one because there is some sincerity in it, and there are some cool things in it. But I also feel like Marvel in general is it's junk food. You know what I mean? Like ultimately, it's not good for you as an emotional being.
I guess that's what I'm saying about superheroes. Is like I think a superhero is like Jason Voorhees, right? Is that
sure?
Jason Voorhees is fun, but there's only so many stories you can make about Jason Voorhees,
and they tried them all, baby. They tried them all.
You're not going to make like an emotional story about Jason Voorhees that doesn't involve him killing people. Like every Jason movie you make, he's going to kill people because that's what he does. It's the same with superhero movies. Is that yes, we are trying to like Logan is a good example, which is I know a lot of people liked Logan, but Logan is another one where they're like we're going to do this like grounded, real emotional story, and then it just ended with pew pews. It's again like and he's going to fight a supervillain. And that's what he's going to do because that's what superheroes do. So there's a very small box in which they exist, and you can tell beautiful stories in that box. But at a certain point, there's just going to be it's limiting. It's so limiting, and I felt the limitations watching this because this is a movie dealing with deep emotional issues that still felt limited by its genre, and that's fine.
Yeah, right. I'm curious. I would be curious to hear how a 22-year-old walked out of this film and felt.
Oh yeah,
like whether they're like this is the best thing ever or not.
It's huge. It means a lot. This movie means a lot to a lot of people.
Well,
and there's absolutely nothing that can take that away.
The postscript,
you know what I mean?
The postscript scene got
We didn't
also
even talk about
literal gasps.
Yeah, which actually surprised me because so the postscripts is that he has a son.
T'Challa
And
had a son with
had
with
a son.
Nakia, right?
And that was a good it didn't even like occur to me, but that is almost what every movie does when a
Right.
character dies, right?
Of course, new birth, right?
New birth. So it was like one of those moments where I was like, "Oh, of course. Why didn't I even see it coming?"
Still worked.
Oh yeah, it was
Like
great.
it was like whoa, big move.
Yeah.
It was very cute. Yeah. And it made her character, who is again too absent in this story, make a lot more sense. How did you feel about Namor's story in general?
So this is another Marvel issue, I thought. And I'm torn on this issue. Again, it's all superhero shit, so it's hard. But that's one of the new Marvel things where they're trying to make things different so they do sympathetic villains more. And
Sure.
they all kind of have starting to get a sameness, which is
He's
my
got a very
origin
Magneto story. His
Yeah,
story's
exactly.
very Magneto.
It's-
yeah.
I have a legitimately sad story, and I'm scared for very right reasons, and my decision is bad. And that was what Killmonger was, and I thought Killmonger was a better version of it than this. The Namor, they had to introduce an entire civilization, an entire new guy. And like that was the thing. Killmonger was like built into Wakanda. Whereas Namor, it's like, okay, we're a bunch of mer people. This is how we started. Like the movie has to come to a screeching halt, basically, to be like, so here's our deal, and here's why we're sympathetic. The actor was fine. It's fine enough. It's just
Yeah, the actor was fine.
you know, like
I liked him.
Sometimes you just want a bad guy who's like, I'm evil. Sometimes, like for a movie like this, I kind of thought like, let's deal with the grief stuff. And let's just make a bad guy. Let's just have a bad guy.
Well, yeah, or make him. I just wish they'd been more like mirrored societies than they came across.
Yeah,
they seemed
It's
like that's
what
what they
you-
were supposed to be.
yeah. It's what
Yeah.
you're saying, which is the idea of like too many arcs, too many people.
too many people.
Like
Yeah.
Namor was a fine character. It's just that in this movie, it felt like a bit much. Also, so people are going to be comparing this to Avatar, right? And having not seen the new Avatar, just watching the trailer, Avatar is the water one, right? It's the way of water.
That's what they're
Just
calling
from the
it.
trailer.
Yeah.
If you're watching the action in the trailer, have you noticed something about that trailer?
I mean, that it's
They're not underwater that much.
No, just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, because here's the problem with action underwater.
You can't do
is
it.
It's it's
Right.
slow.
You can't do
They
it
have-
even in video games. The swimming level sucks. Yeah.
Yep. So what they did in like if you watch again, maybe Avatar, maybe it will have this problem. I'm just going by the trailer, but they have scenes where like they're in a flooding area. Water can work in action when it's not the entire thing. When it's like, oh my god, we're running out of air.
Have you ever seen?
Oh my god, it's the Titanic. There's
Right,
wave,
right. That
which
works.
this movie does. The water grenades, awesome.
Absurd
but-
and awesome. Have you ever
Yeah.
seen the Batman movie from like I don't know, like late 60s, early 70s or whatever, where like it ends up with all Batman's villains in a fight with him on a submarine? And
That
they're
sounds
like literally
right.
punching each other off the submarine, falling in the water, climbing back up, and then getting knocked off again. That's the
Right.
whole thing.
That's great.
As I was watching this movie, I was like, that would be kind of funny if they just
That
kept
would
getting
be.
knocked into the water and they keep coming up and
Yeah.
keep knocking each other off. Really seemed like that's where we could have gone with this.
Oh yeah.
Also,
But I thought just the problem with him and his people was that in order to make them formidable, they had to just keep being on land. Like them being in water felt like it didn't matter.
well,
ever.
Again, I think this is where they could have been. Like the thing about water in general is what the fuck's going on down there, right? That's like
Right.
the cool thing about the ocean. It's why Subnautica works so well, right? The video
Yep,
game.
and
So
for
like
the record,
these,
Aquaman did a good job because they're like it's over the top. They're riding sharks, you know.
right. Okay,
It's
so
like if you can do water battles right but you have to like really put a lot of bullshit in there. But yeah, go on.
Well,
Sorry.
my point would be that I think that it's an argument for not knowing who these people really are.
Yes.
Only like they are sort of like Cthulhu or whatever, where it's like they show up for motives you don't understand. They're kind of like the Borg, and they learn enough about them to like, this is what we have to do, but like they never really know them as people. Yeah, you know.
I'm sure it's the comic books, and they have to honor that.
Of course it is. Yeah, of course.
But the strongest the villain was in this was that first scene.
Yep.
Where they're underwater and you don't know what's down there, and
Yep.
they just the divers vanish, and then the siren stuff, and it was creepy, and it was like, oh, this is cool. But then when they first showed up, and you looked at them, you're like, oh, they look badass. But yeah, you're right. Is the moment he's like, they're like showing like little kids playing like soccer in the water. I was like, this is silly.
Well, and
I would argue their underwater world didn't look that good either. Like it was kind of dark and you couldn't really see
it's hard
what
to
it
see
was.
it. The lighting was not ideal. I would say that there was two directions they could have gone with that. They could have gone the way they did, which is like mirrored society, or they could have gone alien. Like, whereas you never understand them. You understand that they're humanoid, but they refuse to be known. And therefore it's like, we got to kill them all, you know? And then it would have been interesting after that to find out how civilized they really were.
See, that would have been a really cool twist.
Yeah.
Is you make them, you do like an Ender's Game, you do a thing where she's like, I'm going to kill these beasts. And then maybe she doesn't because she realizes that they have a humanity. That they're like, you could do something like that. Yeah, you could do like she kills them all and then, but it's Marvel. So
and it would have paralleled Wakanda's vision of themselves in the UN.
Exactly.
Where they're like, we're the good ones. We are the ones who are holding up the status quo by not getting vibranium out.
And they could realize that, like, the way they see these people is how they get, mad at being seen, right? As, like, freaks, as outsiders.
Right.
So that would have been a really cool idea. That's what it is. The Namor stuff, again, I'm sure it's the comics, but it just felt like the movie came to a halt. And that they never quite... Because it's like, oh, come to this underwater city. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then it's just a cave. Because they can't actually bring them down there. And then they're like, get in this big clunky suit and come down to the underwater city. And then we're going to bring you back up. And it was just like, it was so clunky. All the stuff with that city. Where it was like, here's our holding area. And then you have to go to a separate place. And then we're going to bring you back up. And then like someone has to like track you to this beach. And then I'll go down and rescue you that way. It was, I don't know, man.
I really feel like this shows us why James Cameron is a great director. Because that kind of, and like, not in contrast to Ryan per se, but just in general, because James Cameron has always delivered on that kind of spectacle.
Yeah.
Like, if they're going to go into another world, it's going to be awesome where you go, you know?
Certain things you can do to make it more efficient. Like, for example, Stargate it. Just Stargate it. Or Assassin's Creed
like
Odyssey.
Teleport, you mean?
Yeah. Just have a fucking portal, and it's like, that's it's little things like that where it's like, we don't need to really think about this as much as you're making us think about it. So just do a portal. Do like remember in fucking speaking of James Cameron in The Abyss where they go to the surface at the end and one of them just says like, the aliens must have done something so we didn't have to decompress. And then and that's it. And it's like, you know what? Really stupid line. The movie's great.
Yeah,
I'm glad you didn't dwell on it. Like, it's shit like that where it's like, stick a futuristic thing on her and say this will deal with the pressure and you can come down here. Like, I don't know, man. I would have accepted a lot of bullshit there. Instead, they're like, we're gonna put you in a diving suit and bring you down. And it's like, all right.
God, this is a dumb tangent. I'm just going to say it. I don't want to spend more than 8 seconds on this, Dave. Yeah. So, like, I feel like Namor's origin story is, like, it troubles me on, like, how much do I need to care about the lore of the Marvel Universe level? Because there's a lot of questions that I feel like are just not addressed. Like, why isn't he like everyone else? Just because he was pregnant, like because his mother was pregnant when they took the plant,
Right. He's like a daywalker. He's
right?
He's
Why does
Blade.
that give him? Why does that give him flying feet? Like that kind of stuff. But
Yeah,
that
the
stuff
feet didn't make any fucking sense.
they don't make sense. And like that, but that kind of stuff feels to me like the appeal of Marvel is like all these like interesting corridors and alleys of the lore, but it's all deployed in this very ramshackle way in all these movies. It's not just this one,
Yeah.
all of them.
The
So
thing
I
about
guess I don't get it, you know?
Yeah, the thing about comic books is that they're stupid.
I mean,
And
I used to read them when I was a kid, and I liked
they're
this
a
shit.
lot of fun. But
Yeah.
what I mean, I think people know what I mean. Is I'm not insulting comic books. It's just that they're silly. They're silly. It's oh, he has wings on his feet. How's that work? I don't know. We were all high. You know, like it's just people making shit up. And then these movies have a choice. And the choice is, do we try to make this make sense? Or do we say, fuck it? And I think with this stuff, they should have said, fuck it, a little more.
Yeah, they should have crafted these people more for the needs of Wakanda and that story.
Yeah, they should have just been like, it's magic. They're magic. It's fine. You know? But they couldn't. Like, they should have come down with the comet, you know?
It should have just
Something
been
like
part
that.
of vibranium. Like
Yeah.
honestly, it's like if vibranium's this magic ore, why don't they find out, oh, this society has existed for 2,000 years and this is the effect of vibranium over time on
Yeah.
a group of people? That would have I would have been like, great. You know what I mean? Like
And
that's interesting.
They do magic where they
Yeah.
create, they're like a god makes them at the very beginning. And it's like, yeah, just roll with that. And yeah, the feet are magic essentially. But again, the diving suit, like having to try to like figure out the mechanics, I don't know. It almost needed to be a little sillier.
Yeah, but then you can't do the funeral stuff that they want. They seemed the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I'm the filmmaker, I think that's got to get nailed. Got to nail that.
Right.
So I don't know, man. I will say it's still fun. I think the leads are all very, very good. Like there's really good acting in this.
I enjoyed this movie. I think the best
Yeah.
I can say the clearest thing I can say is it's about that Marvel box. It's still it's pushing at the edges of the box that it's in, and it can't get out of that box. But it's very good, and it's as good. Like a good example I would say is when they're at the beach at night, and they're talking about burning the funeral blanket or whatever, and it's this really good emotional scene, and then the bad guy bursts out of the water, and
Right.
it was that. That's the dichotomy. That's the struggle, which is like, are we gonna do this emotional real movie scene? Because if you are, you don't end it with a flying man bursting
here he
out
comes.
of the water.
Yeah. Also, by the way, the music was just
Oh.
stellar. Just
So
stellar
good.
the whole way through. I loved it. It was like not traditional movie score.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh, thank you. Something else. Just some good ideas. I kind of wish that Coog would make a car chase movie. I feel like he's really good
Yes.
at those.
For fuck's sake, that's what I keep saying. Is
Yeah.
Black Panther, the car chases and the fight scenes. God fucking damn it, keep doing those. Also, is it just me or did Ironheart kill a bunch of cops, a bunch of Boston cops? When
Yeah.
they're
Yes.
going, yeah,
Yes.
okay. Nobody batted an eye. There's a line of cops on the bridge, and she says, "I got this," and they're in their cop cars, and she just bombs them, and then we just never talk about it again.
There's some serious questions about what's going to happen the minute the credits roll. One of them is if you care about Everett Ross, which this film seems to, so he's a fugitive for the rest of his life.
Yes.
Like Wakanda.
No, that is what they're setting up. I think he's going to go
Okay.
to Wakanda.
Okay. All right.
But when they bring Ironheart back to MIT and they're like, don't sell any more tech, don't get in trouble. And it's like, did you not kill 6 cops?
Right. She's never going back. I don't know why she would. Another concern is it seemed like Shuri decided not to be queen at the end of this story.
Right.
Right?
I don't know.
Because
I think she's queen. She's
but
queen.
M'Baku showed up during the Make Her a Queen festival.
You're right.
And was like, I would like to challenge to be king. And she didn't show. So
that's actually
he's king now, I guess?
I'm down with King Winston Duke.
Sure. Fine.
Yeah.
Fine, but does
yeah,
that
you're
mean
right.
Black Panther is a different office than being king or queen?
So that's what I thought it always was.
Me too.
I always thought. That's why I was like. That's why I kept being like, Okoye she could be Black Panther, and then you have Shuri have to deal with being the queen.
That's the general
that just felt more
role.
Yeah, that just felt more efficient. But they went with Winston Duke as king, it seemed, and then Shuri. And in retrospect, it's like, oh, I get that because she's too young to rule. But
she's
I kind of
not
wanted
too young to be Black Panther.
and
I don't
she's
know,
also
man.
a genius. Again, everything they set up with her character is that she's a genius. She's mature. She's fun, and she's young, obviously. But that is more Queen material than Black Panther, in my opinion. I get that this needs to be her story because it's her brother who died and all that. But in the like cold logical look at like if I was ruling Wakanda, how would things be set up? She wouldn't be Black Panther. She has no idea how to fight. She's not a soldier. It makes so much more sense to have one of the soldiers be Black Panther and have her, the genius, rule Wakanda, right? Like
it did to me.
It's her brain.
It made sense to me. I had a hard time getting my brain around it. That's for sure. And I also just wasn't clear. I just wasn't clear, like, what exactly the movie wanted us to think about her relationship to being in charge now.
Yeah,
you know, like they kind of threw like that. They zipped right past that, and it's like, okay, so
they
all
really
right.
did. Yeah,
and that's a big decision. Yeah. So, I don't know.
I almost feel like the Queen could have died earlier, and the movie. There's definitely a more efficient and a more emotional version of this movie that's focused on like, you're the queen now, what are you gonna do? Like, and then her grief and her anger and all that shit. Like, I don't know.
Earlier or later, she could have died at the low point.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, or I guess maybe that's what that was supposed to be. It just felt like the movie was so long that it didn't feel like the right time.
Yeah,
yeah. So I don't know. It feels like there could have been a version where we never thought she was going to die. Like, it's like, of course not, right? Like, she's like,
right.
I can't wait to turn this over to you one day, Shuri. And then, like, just as it happens, you know, she dies, and it's like, oh no, you know, Shuri's definitely not ready because she's in a really bad place.
Yeah,
you know, I don't know. But again,
I think that's what they were trying to do. But
yeah, but it's again too many masters. It's I don't know. There's a part of me would love to hear, like, I wish there was some like behind the scenes documentary of any of these Marvel movies where they show us what is the process for making story decisions. I would really like to know.
I don't think they want us to know because I know they don't. Be really embarrassing.
Yes, I know they don't. Like, because it violates the idea of these filmmakers who really love these stories go out there and tell these stories. That's probably not what's happening.
Yeah. No,
anyway.
There'll never be a Dark Soul. Was that what it was called? The making of Island of Dr. Moreau. There'll never be the Star Wars Episode 1 documentary where you get to see like what are the mistakes. That's one of the things I sorely miss about behind the scenes stuff and DVDs is they used to be a lot more honest.
And they're
like
humanizing.
DVD commentary would be people just ripping on the movie that they're in. And now it's so curated like that. We'll never get a Marvel behind the scenes where we actually hear from a director being like, I thought this was bullshit. Like the Terry Gilliam 12 Monkeys documentary is a great example of like, it's all about how the studio was trying to fuck him over. And how he's also a difficult director. It doesn't paint anybody in good light. That we're just never going to get that with Marvel. It's all so curated. It really is like every time I think about it, the more I think about how Marvel has taken away a lot for young people who want to know about films.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
I think it's tough when you're teaching young people how to make films and like their favorite movies are Marvel movies because it's like that's almost a totally different process. It's like you have to learn filmmaking and then set a lot of things aside that will hurt you to do this.
It's making a commercial.
Yeah, it's kind of. Yeah, kind of.
It is.
Yeah,
because a commercial is, I think, the best comparison where they're like, you are selling a product, and through no matter what you make, what you write, you need to sell this product, and it always has to be this product. You can't piss people off. You can't be too controversial. At the end of the day, there's a product that needs to be sold, and you can't stray from that. And like, yes, you can make some really fun stuff in those parameters, but there'll always be parameters there.
Yep, the guardrails will always be on, and you cannot ever bowl a gutter ball, and you'll never bowl a strike.
Yeah,
because that's how this works. Like, you know, yeah. Anyway, I guess I don't know if the tone of this conversation quite told everyone how like B+ this movie is. You know, it is. It's pretty good. Maybe not that high.
Yeah, we had a conversation before we saw the movie at Universal City Walk on our date.
We did. We had a date.
We were talking about how the importance of representation.
Oh yeah.
And the idea that this movie does mean a lot to a lot of people.
Absolutely,
because it's showing specifically black women in these roles that they don't get to be, and it's still a fun movie it's one of the better superhero movies in my opinion, and this and Black Panther, they're probably my favorite Marvels, or I think they're the best Marvels. And it is like we talk about it very cynically, and we talk about we nitpick the plots and stuff like that, and like that's worth talking about, obviously. But it's more of a frustration with Marvel in general. But like this movie it matters. It's important, even if it's not perfect. People are going to grow up on this, and it's giving good things to the world. You know,
absolutely.
It's not a morally bad movie. You know,
no. And I like Ryan's determination to sort of both put like a legitimately African aesthetic to it, and also add to it an African American like character and point of view that is different. Yeah, like he's examining different components of that equation that I think are interesting. This
shit matters. It matters more than you think. Even if it's cynical, even if it's a bunch of white executives saying we got to get that demographic. The comparison I told you last night was that Dana Scully created an uptick of women going into STEM. The character Scully, and it's like these have stuff like Uhura and Star Trek. Like this stuff does matter. It has real world consequences.
Keep saying it. You'll get it.
Yeah, that are positive. It's doing good things to the world, and so that can't. I don't know. That can't be understated.
It was really rewarding to see it in a theater because you really do. First of all, you don't control who's in the theater with you, right? So like it's a broad swath of humanity, and it works for most moviegoers. Like there was a lot of cheering, there was a lot of like laughs, and like they're not cynical old bastards like you and me. And something in me was like, good for them, and I'm glad they have this. Yeah, and I'm glad for the movie that people like this get to watch the film, who are just genuinely enjoying it. You know?
Yeah, I'm frustrated by the filmmaking aspects, but like, the movie itself, it was great. It was a great audience. You know what was a huge thing about last night?
Please tell me. I'm ready.
The Nicole Kidman ad came on.
Oh my God.
And people,
you want to do that?
And nobody cheered. Nobody cheered. And I'm so sick of people ironically cheering for that fucking ad. And so it's nice to see, because it's Saturday night.
I turned to Dave.
Marvel. And it's really nice to see people not go, woo, every time that fucking ad comes on.
I turned to Dave and I said, we should release a separate podcast where we just watch that ad and talk about about that stupid ad.
But you know what we're going to have to do?
Yeah.
We have to make a pilgrimage, because I learned last night that the place they filmed that is only 20 minutes from where I live.
So wait a minute. So what you're asking me to do is go to this exact theater where it happened and then do it?
Yep.
Okay, Dave, I will do that. I will do it.
Yeah, I want to talk about how it makes you feel to like be there, you know, where it all happened. Dave, where heartbreak feels good.
I'm in. Dave, I'm in on that. I want to do it.
All right, we'll do it.
Great. What a stupid afternoon that'll be.
Yeah.
Dave and I, by the way, got dinner.
We did. It was delightful.
It was really nice. We had dinner at like a Mexican place, caught up about life like old pals.
Yep. Got coffee.
Had a
It was a good time.
We had a coffee. Somebody in the
Universal
Starbucks.
City Walk.
Somebody in the Starbucks had written down Dave's name as Mr. Dave, which just fucking thrilled me. Like, it really
dude.
made my whole night. It's like, Mr. Dave. Oh boy, give that man a top
great
hat.
time. Great time. That's me, Mr. Dave.
Mr. Dave.
Don't you forget it.
God, it was great. No, how could I? It's tattooed on my heart now.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'm done. I'm done with this.
Yeah, we're done. Hey, everybody, thanks for listening.
Sure.
I hope you enjoyed this.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
And yeah, go see this movie. If people were like, should I see this movie? I'd say yes. Go see this movie.
Absolutely. It's one of the best Marvel movies you're going to see. I hope our critiques can be viewed through the lens of the problem with Marvel movies as a genre and the ways that it stopped this movie from being as good as it could have been.
Yeah, I think they know. They're
Okay, good.
adults, right?
I'm just
Most
saying
of them.
Yeah. Some of them.
Yeah.
I think you got an army of 10-year-olds watching these and listening to these podcasts. Oh, I can't wait for you to find out some person, like when you're 50, they just come up to you. Are you Mr. Dave? I listened to all your podcasts when I was 13. And you'd be like, what have I done? What madness have I wrought?
I've had, we have some more news writers who said to me, oh, I've been watching you since high school. And I was like, don't say that. Don't say that.
Yeah.
Don't
You were my hero in high school. That's what they say. And then I'm like, fuck, that's what I am. A hero to a high schooler? Damn it.
Don't say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're heroes.
Yeah.
Adam.
To the wrong people. We're heroes to the wrong people, Dave.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you want to plug your heroicism again?
Sure, yeah. If any of you like video games, like for instance God of War Ragnarok, a film or a game that Dave and I are desperately not talking about right now, please scurry on over to the One Upsmanship podcast. It's really on any of your podcast servers. You can find it. It's with me and Michael Swaim. If you listen to it but have not given us a rate and review, please do. It helps us. We're trying to grow the podcast, into a game empire. If you hate it, hey, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, help us out, bro. Don't be a dick. All the rest of my podcasts, again, patreon.com/smallbeans, where I make director piece theater and talk all about directing at a really technical level with my pal and fellow director Abe. And I'll show you mine if you show me yours with Maggie Mae Fish, who's a dear pal, and we show each other our stuff. And the other one, the Multicurse one, which I think we call Escape from the Multicurse. I think that's it.
I really liked your conversation with her about your ma.
Oh, did you listen to that? I hope my mom never hears it. I would be embarrassed if she heard it.
It was very cute. It was a beautiful little conversation.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, I try not to plan what I'm going to say, and I try to be honest about stuff on that podcast. I feel like it's easy to avoid the truth about things in a podcast like that and just be tell fun stories around a campfire kind of vibe. But we don't do that. We get real in that podcast. So hopefully you guys like that. And I don't know, man, so many other things, but those are the ones you need to worry about right now for today. Sure. Thanks for having me, Dave.
Of course. Thanks for being on. And
Anytime.
I'll plug our Patreon that I do with Tom Ryman, who couldn't be here today. He's actually just on a vacation. I didn't kill him.
No, Ryman forever. Tom Ryman forever.
Yeah. Tom Ryman forever. Listen, we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/gamefully unemployed. GAMEFULLY unemployed. For $5 a month, you get access to a bunch of exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman. Fox Mulder is a Maniac.
Woo!
We do with the small beans, Star Trek: The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys.
Woo!
For $5 a month, you get all of that. And then for more, you can also watch movies with us every Friday night. There's tiers where you can do custom We Just Watched episodes. You can say, watch this movie, and we'll watch it. There's a lot of options on there. Go check it out. We'd love your support. We also are, you can review us wherever there's podcasts. You can also go to gamefullyunemployed.com, and you'll get a link to our merch store. We have a bunch of T-shirts there. They're really fun. A lot of Fox Mulder stuff. lot of X-Files, a lot of Batman stuff. We have a lot of artists who did a lot of custom art for us, and so it's very unique, cool stuff. You'll be really cool if you wear them.
Super cool and unique.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll be cool like us. You're heroes.
Yeah, you will be. Yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah.
If you're 13, this is your best day. Because you'll get to dress the way we dress, and we're 40.
Yeah, exactly. God, we're so fucking cool.
We are the coolest gentlemen.
You see the pulse? You see the pulse? You see our fingers directly on it?
You should have seen us walking around City Walk last night like a couple of lost old men. We was like, what do we do? There's so many lights. Where do we even go? I don't know. We'll sit down, man.
Yeah.
That's what the night's going to be.
I wept.
He was so confused by all the lighting. Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't belong there. It was we didn't belong there.
We didn't. Nobody wanted us there.
Nobody, not a single person. They looked past us as often as they could.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Bye.